All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 216, and probably what is officially our penultimate episode of what has been a tremendous season. It's myself and Craig right now. Adam is fashionably late to the party. So whenever he gets in, he'll get in. Oh, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. But Craig, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Just off the back of a nice time off. So yeah, getting back into daily life right now, which is easier said than done. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad at all. It's been a good week of football for us, hasn't it? Not the best result in the world to finish off with, but in general, it's not been a bad week to be a Brighton fan. So yeah, it's been good. My dog tried to die this weekend and then miraculously recovered as if nothing has ever happened. So the joys of pet ownership, as always, just flooding the good vibes. So like £1,000 later and a fully healthy dog as if he's never been ill is great. Adam, welcome to the show. Welcome to England. How are you doing?
Yeah, long time listener, first time caller. Yeah, it's I'm currently sat in my childhood bedroom, and it's my mum has sort of kept it like a memorial. Like it's how I imagined if I happened to have expired at a young age. It's just not changed. I've got just stuff in here that is just incredibly embarrassing. Incredibly, you're like this. I've got remember the Hardy Boys back in the old school days of WWF? I've got a signed picture of them up on my wall.
I'll go for a few bob nowadays.
Yeah,
maybe you remember the Corinthian bobbleheads? I've got about maybe 200 of them still up on shelves in my room. Yeah. My favorite probably is the Dermot Gallagher referee special edition that I had to go to an event at Villa Park to get. So yeah, anyway, it's great. It's great to be here.
Good. Well, it's apt that we'll be discussing Villa Park today, then in tribute to your Dermot Gallagher bobblehead. Like it's only right that we talk about it.
That's the only reason I'm here, to be honest. Yeah.
This was a week of much rotation and some really important dress rehearsals, really, for a number of players. Van Hecke for one, Buonanotte for another, with his Manchester City performance, and then his corresponding Villa quieter game. Ayari's first start for the club. We saw a lot of young players, Undab as well, again coming in. We had a lot of players that had a good opportunity to show what they were made of over these last two games, with the pressure mostly off. Let's talk about City first, though. They were not easy on us, were they? Walker, Stones, Rodri. They popped in Lewis to pretend they were rotating a little bit. Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Mahrez, Haaland, and Phil Foden as your outfield 10, with Ortega in that goal. How'd that make you feel looking at that lineup, knowing that De Zerbi intended to try and get at least a point from it?
I mean, it was more annoying given that the game before that they completely rotated to have a second 11. So yeah, I was expecting very similar to their game before, but yeah, especially given the rotation that we had too, it was sort of okay. We might see this go one way quite heavily, but it wasn't the case. But with that sort of City team, like you said, even Rico Lewis is very good. So the only thing of seeing Rodri at centre back was the only really blemish on what is a title winning team, isn't it?
If you'd have put a gun to my head and asked me if the Man City game was basically a week ago, I would have said there's absolutely no way. This game feels like it happened in maybe 3 weeks ago to me. But it's flooding back now you said that, and I'm looking at the team sheet, and yeah, I mean, it was intimidating. I know we'll get on to kind of how we lined up and then the actual game itself, but I'm excited to talk about that first half, because you look at that team sheet, you look at what we were putting out, and you went, oh God, what's going to happen here? And it didn't go like that.
Yeah, I mean that's really where I just wanted to lead off from. We played a pretty strongish 11, right? We played a decent lineup, barring your few rotations, your Van Hecker and Ciso. Welbeck coming back in to lead the line for young Evan Ferguson, who's probably very tired after this season. Gilmore gets a chance as well. But yeah, like you said, this is one of those games where you look at it in a little bit like the Wolves game and think, oh no, we're in a bit of trouble here. The Wolves game was more our lineup, and this one was more Manchester City's. But that first half, is that the most scintillating football? Like, is that one of the highest quality football games or 45 minutes of football you've ever seen in any football game? For me, I think it probably is. Like, in the world, like in my time watching football, I can't think of many 45 minutes of football where two teams show such unreal quality in a really attractive way, if that makes sense.
Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets eat your heart out. Yeah. This, and I think maybe we underplayed a little bit when we say a little bit of rotation. Well, let's go back to what a little bit of rotation means to the remainder of what is our team at the end of this season. Van Hecker and Colwill. No, you're starting. How old is Van Hecker? 20? 21? Whatever. Completely unproven. 19-year-old Levi Colwill on loan. I know we love Levi Colwill, but up against Haaland, you look at those two lads and you go, this is a disaster. We've had the weird right back situations. We said Billy Gilmore's playing. We've got Buonanotte. There's no Mac. This is on paper. That's a team again that gets smashed by that Man City team. But as we've seen all season, the paper is irrelevant for this team. It really, really, really is. That first half was, even when we were 1-0 down, the best first half I remember for us playing in terms of quality. And as you say, the overall quality was fantastic. But tell you what, we did not embarrass ourselves. We were incredible, and it could have gone a little bit differently. And we aren't 1-0 down. But I'm trying to think of just some of the passages of play that we saw. But this was a team that should have been overawed, and we're not in any way.
It's strange given like you said, the age of the squad as well. It's just being able to, I guess the pressure was off a little bit. I'm sure we obviously wanted to get the point for Europa League, and we'll come on to that. But I think you're talking about two teams that have the freedom to play, without too much of a consequence. I mean, they're sort of still nursing a hangover from the title win, and we're sort of guaranteed European football barring a catastrophe. So it's sort of like, well, that's perfect, right? And you then have two very expressive teams playing very exciting and very easy on the eye type of football, and you put them together, you're obviously going to find one hell of a high quality football game. I didn't watch the whole 90 minutes, so I'm talking completely off what I've tried to fit in and watch. But the first half I did get, and yeah, I can only just concur with what you guys are saying.
Yeah, I enjoyed that backhanded compliment from Pep saying we played really well, but they were still basically hungover from the weekend. He hasn't seen the videos of De Zerbi auditioning for Coyote Ugly. Like, get out of here. Like, we all saw it. Like, De Zerbi on top of the bar, singing his heart out and having a ball of a time. Like, nah, like, come on, Pep. Like, we were just as much on the beach as you were in that respect. Let's go to the chat real quick. Max in the chat. I don't know if you're still here. You said you can't stay long, but any tips on getting BT Sport cheap? No, just pirate it, you idiot.
Well, we saw some pirate news today as well, didn't we? There's a few people got done for illegal streaming. So
yeah, they're buying it though. They're actually like illegal streaming and then getting subscribers for it. Which
okay.
Yeah,
I don't believe you can be prosecuted for streaming, only distributing. Is that like a fake? Is that bro science that I've picked up?
No, I think you're actually accurate. It's a group. I guess it was like 7 or 8 people who were streaming it to people, like obviously distributing it to people, and they would charge them like a tenner a month, and people were paying for it. I would suggest to those people paying for it, like, just please, like, get slightly more internet savvy. There are plenty of options to watch Premier League football if you want to. That is not paying £10 to some random idiot who's doing something that you could be doing for nothing. Max, also, I hope you're the same, Max, but I'm pretty sure you've won the Fantasy Premier League as well. So congratulations to you, if it is you. If it's not, then congratulations to the other Max Ward, I suppose. Stephen in the chat, Adam, is it nice to be drinking proper beer, not Bud Light? Now the question is, what beer are you drinking?
Well, here's the irony. I am drinking bloody Brooklyn Brewery Pilsner that you can buy here. So I'm drinking a beer that I guess was brewed as the crow flies, probably about 30 minutes, 20 minutes from where I live, thousands of miles away. But you know, I have partaken in some more local stuff since I've been here. But to be honest, I got slightly compelled. This you got a free, pretty nice glass when you bought the 6-pack. So I'm a sucker for the little freebie. So yeah.
Love free stuff. Love it. Obviously, the first goal comes about 25 minutes in, after what was just 25 minutes of great football. And really, we all knew Europa League was abound, despite what De Zerbi tried to say. And really, it wasn't too much of a bother, was it? We were playing a weakened side. They caught us with a De Zerbi special with the counter-attack that they put on. And carved us apart in ways that Manchester City have done against every single team this year, and will continue to do to every single team this year for the rest of the Champions League final and the FA Cup final I think they've got left. I suspect they will do it to both of those teams. And we were 1-0 down, and honestly, I felt all right with it. It wasn't one of those things I was too upset by. Julio Enciso, however, was slightly more upset than I was, and he let it all out in a 38th minute on one particular strike. It has since won the Match of the Day's goal of the season, and will probably win our goal of the season whenever the Albion Awards start being sorted out, which is odd. I feel like our end of season stuff has started to be like organized by now, but I haven't heard anything about what that looks like. But just how special was that strike?
So, Craig, it's hard to. This is a layup, though, isn't it? Really? No, it was shit. It was enough. Did you see the little clip from when Pep was he's being interviewed afterwards and doing the press conference, and he got distracted because he was watching the goal go in? It's just one of those ones where, if you've been crap at football for your life, and even if you've been good at football, that's the hit you dream of. That's the hit you dream of. You just smack it and curl it into postage stamp in the top corner against the best team in the world. And it's just unanswerable. We talked about this before, because this is not the first time NC's just banged one in from distance. This seemingly is how he operates. And I think this is not the last time that we'll see something like this out of him, and he can be a frustrating player. But when you get a moment like that, I mean, I think he's in the first 11 next year, unless we suddenly go on some spending spree whereby we've picked up a slew of amazing players. He's been so impressive, and this just puts the icing on the cake of his season since coming into the 11.
He's only 19, right? Very young. Paraguay's next big thing as well. They're just so happy with it, aren't they? They're just in love with him. And
what was the previous big thing with respect? Roque Santa Cruz?
Santa Cruz, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
If we both thought it, it's got to be true.
Still playing, yeah.
Craig, I want to hear your thoughts on the goal as well, but I wanted to ask you something else, because Adam also just said something that sparked that thought in me. He is a frustrating player, and he frustrates the shit out of De Zerbi with how selfish he is, apparently, even after that traction engine of a goal. I want to hear your thoughts on that, and then also just what you think about the way De Zerbi came out and basically just laid into him right after scoring like goal of the season.
I swear, but he does it every time, right? Like I feel like whenever Enciso has a decent game, De Zerbi comes down and sort of cools it down a little bit and goes, well, put the brakes on. Like you need to be less selfish. But for me, if you can get a strike like that from Chelsea and Man City and stuff, like feel free, right? The track record's there that you can ping it into top bins. So I think he's kind of got free reign now. Like if he does want to have a pop from 30 yards, you go, well, it can happen. So I don't mind him trying. But yeah, it tends to be a tendency of De Zerbi just to try and maybe ground him a little bit every single time and maybe always demanding more. If that's the man management technique that you need from an erratic 19-year-old that tends to just score goals for fun against top six sides or media friendly top six sides, then fine. But yeah, it just seems like a man management technique from De Zerbi, really, just to try and keep him on the straight and narrow. Because if you're 19 and you're banging goals like that, I would probably have a little bit of an ego as well.
He does have the air of an ego about him, doesn't he?
Is it the 6-minute dance routine he does after scoring?
The 74 different celebrations he has on the game. Yeah, he is not Evan Ferguson. He is not the grey rock in the ocean. It just seems cool.
This stoic giant.
Yeah. He does not portray that kind of coolness. He definitely has the very, very much chance of being an arrogant little bitch if he gets going. So I feel like De Zerbi is doing a pretty good job there.
Speaking of, I just want to mention quickly but have you seen some of the stuff around Mudryk that's been coming out on the internet? How he's videoing old like guys in the gym and taking the mick out of them and like commenting on camera angles for photo, like, and he's crap. At least he has been. Do you think like at 19? Do you imagine do you remember how much of an idiot you were at 19? Because I'm still an idiot, and I was way more of an idiot at 19. Now imagine if you just banged that goal in and you have the talent he does. Like Craig's right. Your ego would inflate like one of those old Branson air balloons. Like you could turn into an absolute arsehole. And the whole premise of everything De Zerbi does is that there's no arsehole. You're all about the collective of the team, and it's about the style of playing. You fit into that. And he's the maverick. He's the joker in our pack a little bit, right? Everyone else plays into the system to a certain extent. Now he's the exception to that rule. And I think that really does work in certain instances, but it goes back to what we said on the last pod. He's the guy that has 60% pass completion compared to everyone else's 80s and 90s. And you have to temper some of that with him as he grows into a more mature player. And De Zerbi's a god among men. Like, he's the greatest man that's ever lived. So I trust him with whatever he wants to do.
Same again this week, by the way, 60 and 61% pass accuracy at Manchester City and Villa. So yeah, Buonanotte was not much better actually in the Villa game for horrendous pass accuracy. I don't want to get into players too much. I want to go to Villa and then package deal the players because I do have some questions for you all and just thoughts. Haaland's goal that was disallowed, because that was really the only major talking point for that second half of the Manchester City Brighton game. It's almost like everybody took their foot off the pedal a little bit after what was quite possibly just the most stupendous half of football you'll see all season. And it's almost like they were like, all right, let's just relax a little bit. Plenty of substitutions. Ferguson, McAllister, Veltman and Undav came on for us. Gomez, Phillips, Alvarez and Palmer on for City. We wanted to get some people rested. We wanted to continue with the rotation. And really that was the main talking point in that second half. That goal that was not from Erling Haaland. VAR ruled it out, adjudged to have fouled Colwill, I think, in the box. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought on first viewing, I thought it was a foul, just sort of pulling him out of the way. I mean, the tussles can go either way and those sort of things, but I also feel like if we scored a goal from that situation, I would fully expect it to be chalked off as well. So by using that perspective, I do think it was a foul, and the direct cause of him scoring a goal. Like if he didn't do it, I feel like it's a lot more contested. So in that approach, I can see why it's been chalked off.
It's a foul, but they're never given. So I'm very, very glad it was, and I'm sure everyone listening was. But how many times have you seen this silliness, especially in corners and free kicks? These tussles that happen, they just nothing ends up coming out of it. Yeah, the good VAR happened.
I feel like it wouldn't have been given if there was more bodies in the box. Right?
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
that's a
just
decent
because
point.
it's just a pure isolated incident, there's just two people being focused on. If that happens at a corner, that's not being given even with VAR.
I was thinking the same. That's how I felt
Yeah,
with
fair point.
the corner situation. Like they never get given. That happens at every corner, every single one, without fail. You'll see that exact foul at every corner, and it will never get given. But I think now you've said it, I think you're right. That box was actually quite empty, wasn't it? So it stood out like a sore thumb. And he full on basically pulled the shirt off his back, which is never the best way to try and pretend to not do something when you're kind of turning the large shirt into a double XL from yanking on it so hard. It's not going to be the best thing with all the TV cameras around. All right. In terms of the game itself, before we move to Villa, don't want to touch on players too quickly. Anything else to cover in terms of the game? Any incidences you wanted to touch on from the Manchester City game itself?
Well, Craig might have one, but you're talking to the person that forgot this game occurred until you reminded me, and then I remembered that amazing first half. And obviously, you can't forget the goal. I just said no. I couldn't remember what bloody week it even occurred in. I just think it was. I know you didn't want to talk about players, so of course I'm going to talk about players a little bit. But not a Brighton player. Let's not talk about Brighton players. Haaland in general, right? There's this fear whenever you play him that he's going to do the seemingly inevitable. I don't feel at any point during that game, outside of the shirt pull moment, that there was many like very, very, very clear cut chances created for him. And maybe I'm forgetting a couple that occurred, but the way that we seemingly set up made him a bit more of an isolated figure. I think there was a point when he got free running behind the defense that did scare me in the first half, I believe, and he just got through as a runner and just sprinted off. Didn't end up scoring. But I mean, I'm saying this, it sounds really mundane to comment on this, but let's go back to what we talked about. Your defense is whoever on earth it was at right back for this game. I guess Caicedo, I think it was. And a 19-year-old and another youngster that's played, started 2 Premier League games in his career. And Estupiñán, who's rarely ever in his own half. That's impressive. That's really impressive. You don't even have your starting World Cup winning pivot sat in front of the defence. You've got Billy Gilmour, who everyone after Norwich was basically writing off as a championship player. Like, if that doesn't say a lot, I don't know what does. It's incredible. Incredible to be able to do that.
All right, let's move to Villa then. Last game of the season, European tour confirmed, 6th place confirmed. We cannot move regardless. We could have beaten 25-0 or lost 100-0. We're not going anywhere but 6th place. So the pressure was truly off. And De Zerbi definitely portrayed that in the lineup he threw out there. Our lineup on that day, 2-3 days ago: Steele, Veltman, Webster, Colwill, Gross at left back, and Ciso, McAllister, Ayari as a debut, Buonanotte again, Undav, and Ferguson. We had some very young kids on the bench, but also a very strong bench as well. Lewis Dunk on the bench, Welbeck, Gilmour, Caicedo, Estupiñán, Mitoma, Van Hecke, and Hinshelwood on the bench. This is a game that Villa desperately needed to win in order to leapfrog Spurs into that 7th place finish. And within about 8 minutes, it was another De Zerbi special being caught on a counter-attack with what looked to be a back 3 initially, really caught out of place, and what was basically the easiest goal Luiz is ever going to score. Not a great start, was it? Did it feel like we were just on the beach at this point? Were you fearing the worst?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the level of rotation, I think. I mean, we spoke a bit about Man City before this, but completely missed the concept that Dunk wasn't playing, right? And I guess just the seemingly non-effect that it had against what is a title-winning team. But yeah, it just felt a little bit like sixes and sevens for that first goal, and we couldn't have made it any easier for them. It's a heavily rotated team. We're sort of giving Iori his first start. There's a few players in there. Pascal Gross at left back, for example, like that. It's just stuff that even we're not used to, and we're used to a lot of rotation. So when I saw the lineup and tried to make sense of it, it was a case of, okay, well, this is going to be a hard one to try and get something out of. But you're right. I think it's more of a fact that nothing could have changed, and our season is pretty much confirmed, and we're in the top six. It's just a bit of a bad goal to give away.
I came into this game with, probably all did, this kind of like swagger of, I don't care what happens, it doesn't matter, we've already done what we need to do, just do whatever, play anyone. As soon as they scored, I became furious. I was like, no, you fucking, excuse my friend, get out there, earn your money, do it, don't embarrass yourself, because let's keep that happiness, that momentum, that aggression going into the summer. So yeah, that it was frustrating to see that, but you know, as the game headed into the sort of deeper parts of that first half, the I guess the overall kind of perspective of the game shifted massively for a certain period of time. I know we'll get on to the goal that wasn't, and then Villa's second, but outside of that, we suddenly like really took the game by the scruff of the neck, and it was really nice to see a bizarre makeshift 11 with nothing to play for come out and say, nah, this is not okay. Thank you very much. We are going to make something happen here. That was awesome to see.
I agree. That was De Zerbi hallmark all the way through it. Like whatever he's talking to them about and whatever Michael Jordan videos he's got on display are clearly working, even with nothing to lose, because they looked as furious as you did, Adam. Like they really did.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Well, it might be Scottie Pippen videos now. I don't know if anyone cares about this, American listeners, who's coming out and basically saying Michael Jordan wasn't very good and it was all him. So yeah, maybe Scottie Pippen videos.
Maybe. I don't feel like De Zerbi would agree with that. I feel like
the only person that agrees with that is Scottie Pippen.
Yes. So let's talk about the goal that wasn't, and then the goal that was from Deniz Undav. And just let's just talk Deniz Undav in general. Let's get on to some of the players because he only played against Villa. We have probably plowed a furrow so deep into Farmers League jokes about poor Deniz Undav this season, that there is not much left to sow or reap, rather, I suppose, from that. So the last 6 games, however, almost coincidentally since Buzz's boot room, which seems to have been a turnaround for him. And he has actually come out and said that he has had the best couple of months in his life recently for Brighton. Everything has changed. He's happy now. Whatever all this means, he's turned it around. And we're starting to see and understand from his movement why he scored as many goals as he did at the Belgian league. Aren't we? Because he is not particularly rapid or does anything particularly special, in the same way that Mopé doesn't, right? But he's got very clearly now that instinct that we hadn't seen for a long time. It seems to have refound itself because this is a dangerous footballer now, isn't it?
He is, yeah. Especially sort of the turn. I think you've 5 goals in 8 games. You had a couple disallowed throughout as well. Like we know that composure and that instinct is there. It's just, I think it's taken him a while to adapt, or maybe to get his chance. But I guess anyone that had even followed a hint of Belgian Pro League last year would have been fully aware of his capabilities in front of goal. It's just how quickly, or how well could he adapt to a very high level of football. And if this means that he's through that adaptation and is going through that now, and if he gets 5 goals in every 8 games, yes, it is a dangerous footballer that we have. I say we as a collective fan base have been highly critical of this year.
I still don't know whether he's the worst or best player ever. It's so, he has the Mope. It's so easy to compare him. It feels lazy to compare him to Mope, but I'm going to compare him to Mope. In that you get the sublime goals from him. Like we talked about those 2 chip goals that he scored, and you're like, how on earth have you managed that, mate? And you go back to some of Mope's goals that he scored, and how often do we all, as fans, watch Mope play? Like, mate, you're 1-on-1 with the keeper. How do you not score this? And Undav's got that in him. He's absolutely got that thing where you're like, the easy ones he can't do. There was one in this game as well, where he got completely through and he just didn't have a clinical finish. And
it was a good save too.
Emi Martinez, as a credit, Emi Martinez is a good keeper. I hate him, but he's a good keeper. But you need to, for these players that play in up top. And again, this is a really very, very basic point. You have to have that killer instinct. I've not seen the killer instinct from him. I've seen the ability to score amazing goals, and his positioning and movement has been really impressive, what we've seen him play. But this is a team that, aren't we the team, I saw some stat the other day, that's created the most chances in the top? Like we create the XG created or something is off the charts for us. He should be scoring. Here's a question. I'd be interested if people will think about this. Neal Maupay's on the bench at Everton, an Everton side that, very, very bad. But we've seen the renaissance that every player has had under De Zerbi. Would Neal Maupay be better than Dennis Undav has been under Roberto De Zerbi? I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is be pretty similar.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I can probably say as well. I'm not sure. Stephen in the chat saying he thinks that the last 8 games probably saved Undav not going out on loan. I think you're right. I think that unless we strengthen in the front line, which I don't think we will really, I don't think we're going to look to sign a striker if we want to play with one. And we've got Welbeck, Undav, and Ferguson. I suspect that De Zerbi is probably happy with 3.
I think you want 4 for European football.
Yeah, you're right. And Pedro may well fit that bill as well, because he has played as a striker a lot of his career. It's only really this last year or so that he's dropped back a little bit and shone. So it's going to depend on what De Zerbi wants to do. But yeah, I think he's right in that. I think that Undav definitely isn't going out on loan now. I think he's definitely got himself a position in that squad. The US tour should be interested and thinks he's going to play around with the back line. I don't know whether you mean like 4s and 3 at the backs. If you do, I don't think we'll mess with that. I think that De Zerbi loves his 4 at the back, his 4-2-3-1, and it's not going to change. He's been very adamant that his football will never change. He has his ideas and his philosophy. I think we were forced into a 3 at the back this weekend just for something to do. It was almost like something that he just wanted to have a look at. But his goal this weekend, first of all, the disallowed goal was a proper killer instinct goal. That was one of those ones that you've not seen a Brighton striker do outside of Evan Ferguson since Glenn Murray, really. Like it was a great kind of goal off the back of the defender that you don't see, and then it's promptly ruled out. Which is
true.
Which
great.
is just classic.
Webster's ball and Cesso's ball, fantastic as well.
Yeah. Then of course the Villa goal comes, and then the worry comes that the heads might go down. They most certainly didn't. Jacob Ramsey though was fantastic for Villa. Annoyingly, I thought he was really good all day. He was the only one that really stood out as anything in this Villa side that has been unbelievable under Emery. The return that Emery has got from this Villa side is astounding. And yet when I watched that team this weekend, I wasn't that impressed, with the exception of Ramsey. I thought he was superb, and only 22 as well. So there's a lot of talented young kids coming through. But we did go into halftime 2-1 down, with Dennis Undav scoring the goal. Pascal Gross assist. Why not, right? Pascal Gross, as per usual, playing at left back, grabs an assist for the goal.
Nothing surprises me about that guy anymore. Like, I just with the amount of positions that he's played as well. We can sit here and talk about Gross all day. But the fact that Undav's managed to control that with the back of his head is stellar as well. Whether that was actually a genuine attempt or he knew what he was doing. But I laughed the first time I saw it, but it's a good finish when it does drop for him.
That's it goes this nutty thing, isn't it? He's got absolutely no right to do that. Like the backwards bobble header that completely destroys the defender, and then he pops it in. But let's. I know you're probably going to bring this up. Let's not sour what was obviously. I know we lost, but we're going to do a season wrap up where we'll talk about how incredible this was, obviously. But let's moan a bit. This was disallowed. This refereeing performance, David Coote and his merry band of idiots. It was a when you annoy everyone, the commentary, every fan of any club, Villa, Brighton, neutral, the dogs are barking outside of the stadium. Every decision that they could have made was the dumbest decision that you could make. I don't understand how they're paid.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was inevitably headed to this point as well, because they were fucking awful. Like, I have never been, and that's where I felt like, I know you said you were furious after the goal, but like, I still wasn't even that bothered until this refereeing performance just kept ramping up. Like, I think it was like the 4th yellow card challenge from Matty Cash that got waved away that had me like fuming. I was livid. Like, I was like sat up. I was like, this is absolutely, I was raging. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I know you just want to go on your holiday and you've had a long season and you want to just go away. But like, so do these players, and they want to go without like leaving on crutches, preferably, Mr. Coote. So if you could please protect anyone on that field whatsoever from these challenges that are coming in, it would be great, because it was a spicy game for what was the last game of the season, with one team had nothing to play for. And Ciso was doing a great job winding everybody up. But yeah, like I actually can't fathom how bad that refereeing performance was. And if this was a game we needed something from, with 38 minutes on the dot now in, we'd have spent the last 36 of them post intro talking about this prick.
I think it's at 37 probably. Yeah. Whatever. There's no logical conclusion that we can reach, Craig. Like, how many times have we talked about this? It's not like we can come to some miraculous thing where, oh great, yeah, hopefully this changes. But how often did we talk about how we thought the season would come down to this game? You're absolutely right. How aggrieved would we be if some of these decisions whereby we could have, arguably, Villa players could be sent off, as you say. Players could have been injured. Here's a hypothetical. Let's say one of them completely destroyed Caicedo's leg. This is a player we're talking about to potentially sell for 100 million, and suddenly that's gone because of this stupidity. Like, I'm sure he would have showed him a yellow card if someone like Matty Cash came in with a hammer.
It's just a concatenation of just comedy, isn't it? Really, like, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry at this point. But it's like you said, if we needed something from this game, and Matty Cash puts in four yellow cards worth and still doesn't get anything, and you're playing against a right back that, you know, isn't yellow carded yet, so can play with sort of full expression, you're going to be fuming that you can't attack that weakness of all of that good play down that left hand side. that irrelevant of that, I think the injuries and stuff like that, combine that with the fact that if we did actually need something from this game, you're right. This entire podcast would have been about ineffective referees, not just for this game, but for the entire season, because the Palace, the Spurs, everything like that, there's every single goddamn obstacle that has been put in our way that if we did not achieve European football, there would have been 2, 3, 4, 5 hours on referees and every instance in where we've been scolded and sort of brought down a peg. I'm very happy that that wasn't the case and we've managed to beat all of that stupidity. But next year can't really get any worse. I know I'm touching wood with that, but like it is horrible in with regards to the effectiveness of what they're doing. And then I saw today on BBC Sport that they want more, I guess, more protection for the referees and bits and pieces like that. So it's something that needs to be worked on this summer. It has to be. And I'm fully going to redact that because it can always get worse as well, because we know that.
No, I'm clipping that for next February.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
When Matoma came on, he started causing a lot of problems and he was hacked down a lot. And Matoma has not been one, so far as we've seen, to like overly milk things. He'll go down when he loses balance and push, but he won't sit on his ass and just wait. He will get up and by the way, random side now, his defensive work is incredible. His work rate to get back. We haven't talked about this much, but he's a massive asset defensively as well. But he even would sit down on some of these and just go, "You haven't stopped play. Why haven't you stopped play?" I was just flat. Like he couldn't believe it. So we're even sort of offending players new to the Premier League that cannot understand how poor the refereeing is. It's I can absolutely see it getting worse. There's very little doubt in my mind. I can see it getting worse.
Yeah, probably the same. No, Mitoma's defensive work is insane. I think it's very Japanese, right? Like that entire Japanese national team roll out in two banks of four that are expected to work as pairs on the wings and defend as a duo. And it's why they're so dangerous in these World Cups, because they've been doing it for like a decade and have been causing problems for teams with the collectiveness they attack and defend with on each side of the pitch. And when you've got a player like Mitoma who has such a dangerous offensive side as well, then yeah, you can see why this Japanese side is as good as they are. Relative to what should be their strength, right? They're pretty much always consistently exceeding expectations. Let's talk a couple of other players because that was basically it. Ended 2-1. The rise and fall of the Mr. Inconsistent himself, Facundo Buonanotte. He is one to watch next year, I'm sure, because he gives me major Alexis McAllister vibes. This is a kid that's just come over from Argentina, labeled as a really promising, very promising young man. From all the big names in Argentina, I think even Messi is name dropped. Facundo is one to watch for the future. Alexis was another one of those players, and due to the pandemic and everything else, it was a very kind of slow transition to the Premier League in English football. I don't think Facundo is going to take that long, simply because the world around him is hopefully better. God forbid we get another one. But everything's looking better these days-ish. And I suspect this summer is going to be probably the most grueling summer of that young man's life, is it not? Because this is a kid that was simply phenomenal against Manchester City this midweek. He was tremendous, and he was anonymous to downright shocking against Villa. And that's what we would see from Alexis when he was first coming into the squad. And now we are about to sell him for 70 million plus to Liverpool. What do we think? What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts on Facundo, because I think he is probably going to be that next player that is going to take a little while to bed in. But I feel like by November of this year, he's going to be one of those players that we're talking about as like first name on the team sheet if he grows how he looks like he could.
Yeah, I think it's consistency, right? And we saw that with Alexis as well, just being able to sustain a high level on a consistent basis. And it took Alexis a fair while to get to that. I think you're right. The world around us now is different to what it was for McAllister. So it's just exciting, right? And you think that the Premier League season just ends and he's immediately called up to the main Argentina squad like that. It tells you everything you need to know in terms of what people think of him and what people are expecting of him. Really good against City. I didn't see anything at Villa really. Just needs to work on that. I think with a full preseason with a squad as well is going to be very useful for him. Very exciting, right? You get to attract these sort of level of players and sort of put them in an environment and a culture where it's okay to fail. It just gives them the freedom to progress, and hopefully that works.
Yeah, he's the guy that Carlos Tevez managed and came out and said was comparable to Messi. I mean, yeah, I've not seen that yet. I think at about 19 years of age, Messi was sort of already breaking records, but maybe comparable in the way that Fiat 500 is comparable to a Ferrari. I don't know, but yeah, he's looked. What you want to see at a young age, you don't expect consistency. If you're consistent, you are Messi, and you're a generational player, if not the best player of all time, in my opinion. Humbly, yes. If you have consistency at that age, is incredible. What you want to see is how high is your ceiling? Can you play these games where you're incredible? If you can, let's work on it and let's bring the consistency in over time. That's all you hope for, and we've seen that. We haven't seen that from Ayari yet, at least in my opinion. We've not seen that high ceiling yet. He's put in some okay-ish performances. Again, he was pretty rubbish in that half against Villa. And that's in Cisse, we've obviously seen the ceiling. We've seen a very low floor, but we've seen a very high ceiling. Buonanotte, I think we all, just as a fan base, have to very much temper our expectations around some of these players going into next season, because you do not have black swan Premier League events like this very often. Like, I'm sorry, but no one in their right mind predicted, after everything that Chelsea spent money on, and they went into the season with Thomas Tuchel, a Champions League. No one saw what they happened to them, for like completely the bottom falling out of the whole process. No one saw Liverpool's start to the season. Like, there was loads of events that occurred to conspire to create this incredible moment that we've had. But we cannot go into a new season thinking that, Buonanotte and Ciso are going to play every game next year and they're going to play at the level that we've seen. And Ciso's going to bang in those goals that we've seen every 2 games. So I guess the reason I'm saying this is, don't be downbeat if we don't see Buonanotte come good yet. But yeah, pre-season is going to be great. It's going to be helpful. The squad has done amazing things. De Zerbi's going to be incredible. He's surrounded by amazing players. But he might be crap for a season. He might be crap next season. And he might not come good until the year after. That's okay. He's a baby. That's like, it doesn't just happen. So yeah, good signs though.
Yeah, a player that's a little bit older, 22 years old, the fall and rise in 2 games of Van Hecke, who absolutely bodied Haaland in parts for the Manchester City game, but altogether was not the best player on the pitch, especially in that first half where he looked miles off it. In hindsight, given that I probably consider that the best half of football I've ever seen on Brighton side play, I feel like maybe I was a little bit too harsh on him in terms of not being able to keep up. Because if I was on that field, I probably would have just stood and just watched it and just been like, that was really good. I'm not going to try and run to do any of those things because you'll be up the other side of the pitch by the time I try. However, it did really well coming on against Villa for that last 25 or so minutes. This is a player that, like Leo Ostergaard, who never could get a game for title winning Napoli, who is now sat on the bench at a team that he insisted he would never have to sit on the bench for. Van Hecker is similar in the fact that he wants first team football. He's very adamant about it. It's why he went on loan last year, despite Potter wanting to keep him. He wanted to go out and play first team football for a football club. He has only just had his chance. And what do you think, both of you, about the future of Van Hecker after those two performances? Do you think this is a player that we may well see in the squad next year? Or do you think he's going to be one of our loan armies or even full permanent transfers out of the club?
I think if he is adamant on having a first or just starting games on a regular basis, then we can see him leave, because I don't think that's something that is going to happen here. If he changes that sort of mentality and wants to be part of a squad, and he knows that De Zerbi is going to rotate as often as he does, and if he's comfortable with that situation, I can see him staying. Right. It just depends entirely on what that ultimatum is, and if he wants to be starting games and he wants promises of that, it isn't going to happen here. Right. I think he's good at a sort of base, like Premier League level. I could see him going to a really top championship team as well and starting games. But I just don't see him as a starting centre back for us, given that we have Webster, Dunk, probably one more in. I'm not including Colwill because I'm expecting him to go back, right? So then you're talking about numbers too. And De Zerbi's always talking about numbers, and now operating in 4 different competitions is you need quantity as well. And if this is someone that is used to the way that we're playing and is competent in the way that we're playing, despite not being a star centre-back or starting every game, I could see De Zerbi wanting to keep him as well. So that if he's not completely ultimatum on being a starting centre-back for every single game, I can see him staying.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right? But his contract's up in a month, right? He's only runs until the summer. I really don't. I think Josh, we talked. Drop my iPad. We talked during that game a little bit about Van Hecker, because you're right. I don't know whether I need to modify my opinion, because there was a point during the game where, candidly, I think I said something along the lines of, I don't think Van Hecker's it. And then, of course, Haaland doesn't do anything. The little highlight reel goes around on Twitter of him like doing a little weird skill move and a double touch in his own box, and then playing it out like he's some kind of absolute legend of the game. But there were some really shaky moments there, which you expect, right? He's just, I think, what is he? He is 22, right? So you start to feel like he could be there. But I agree with Craig. When it comes down to it, Lewis Dunk's not going anywhere in your starting lineup. I know we've rested him for the last 2 games here at the end of the season, but he's had a long season. He's played a lot of football. So who partners him? Again, I agree with you. We're not shifting to 3 central defenders. It's going to be 2. Levi Colwill is 3 years younger than Van Hecker. He's left-footed, so can play neatly there, and is the quality that you want and desire to see. And this bears repeating, out of a team that is going to be playing in multiple competitions, including the Europa League. Van Hecker has shown nothing yet, apart from maybe a skill move in a game against Man City and doing a half decent job and a half poor job against Haaland, to warrant having that role all season against Lewis Dunk. And remember, Adam Webster is still here. Again, question marks around him. So I agree with you. I think we need a new central defender in. We've been rumoured with central defenders coming in for quite a long time at this point. Levi Colwill could come. We don't know. There's tweets been going out from fairly respected people saying there is mutterings that maybe he is going to be able to come back to Brighton. I just don't think he's the guy. I don't think Van Hecker is the guy yet. He's not shown enough. Could he be? Yes, but I think he starts next season.
Looks like
is that fair?
Adams. Yeah, it is. It looks like your internet has gone back to the same era your childhood bedroom is in currently. It's
Oh
struggling.
yeah, I don't know how much you got of it. Yeah. All right, I'll send the video off. No one wants to see this anyway.
James in the chat, are you guys going to do one of these next week? Yes, sir. Season wrap up next weekend. We will be here for our final episode, official episode of this season. I'm sure we'll be here or there in the summer because we have that little thing called a US tour with 2 of us based in the US. So that will definitely be covered. And I suspect that we may well have the busiest summer in our history. So yes, there will be plenty of coverage this summer. I think, as opposed to last year where I think we didn't speak to each other for like 2.5 months because we signed like nobody at all.
Yeah, nothing happened. Yeah.
Nothing happened until Kukurea bounced, and I think that was like days before the season started and Estepinian came in. I think outside of that, we didn't do anything at all. So very different summer coming up. Let's talk about those 2 that we're inevitably then going to talk about this summer. I would go as far as to say we have definitely seen the last time Alexis McAllister is going to wear a blue and white Brighton of Albion t-shirt. And at 24 years old, after winning a World Cup and helping us along in this unbelievable season, there is no better time for Alexis McAllister to make the step up to wherever he wants to go, be it for money or be it for playing in the best competitions in the world. Liverpool are obviously the team that are rumoured to be getting him. Short term, that's not the best idea for the best competitions in the world because he'll be playing in the same one we are. Long term, I think we're all very, very aware that Liverpool's trajectory is probably slightly more promising than ours long term. But the Alexis situation is there's not much better time to sell him for us than now, is there? Really? He's just won a World Cup and we've just finished 6th. There's really not many times that he's going to have the same value as he has today.
Yeah. And he's been a great servant to the club, obviously. And I think he's hit his sort of peak value, right? You're at 24, taking us to the Europa League. The only real way your value goes up even more is that you either go to the latter stages of the Europa League or you play in Champions League football. And at this point, I don't see that. I don't see that transpiring in the short term. So at that point, you then follow the Brighton model, right? And you go, right, this is at the peak of the money that we can get for this player. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's been on the books for a while, right? I think we're all sitting here and knowing that this was going to happen in the summer. And like you said, going to Liverpool, we'll be playing in the same competition of them, which is, again, mental. But at the same time, it's different. And for him to, double his wages, if not more, in going to that and being able to do that, he obviously leaves with all of our best wishes. I think just getting the right amount of money and reinvesting that into a squad that is capable of playing 4 competitions is the most important part.
Yeah, look, I like the fact that the people are still coming out. Hopefully, my 56k modem stays in here, but coming out after the game, being like, "Oh God, I really hope he stays." He cried and hugged every member of the Brighton player and staff grouping. What do you think? He was just emotional. Of course, he's gone. He's long gone. Yeah, I've just been great. Perfect. Move on. I really do think whatever, this internet is absolutely diabolical, isn't it? Whatever, he's done. Alexis is done. I'm done.
It's not the best internet in the world. It's been great for like 55 minutes. So like, if you put some more money in the meter, like
it's on pay as go. Yeah, it's on pay as you go.
I will also say one thing about Alexis, because he's one of those players that will be going with all of our blessings. But this is a 24-year-old kid who's just won the World Cup. The professionalism and the way he conducted himself at the level of the game we're talking about these days is something that is so rarely seen in football anymore. It should be the norm, but the fact that I'm so blown away by it, this kid had loads of interest in January, but he was so adamant that he wasn't going anywhere in January. It didn't end up going the Caicedo way. Like, he was so adamant, and his dad or uncle or both or whatever was so firm on the fact that he was not moving to any other club until the summer. End of. They'd got something in his contract that makes it easier for the summer. They'd also been very clear about that. But we watched Trossard do it. We've watched Sanchez do it. We watched Caicedo's new agents do it. It's really just got to be applauded that he's done everything in the right way. Do I think he is the kind of player that is going to be a like key player to Liverpool? No, I don't. I don't think he's a 70 million pound midfielder. I will happily take 70 million pound for him and wish him the very best. Do I wish we could keep him? Yeah, of course I do. He's superb, but he's not. It's similar to Ben White, really. Like, is Ben White a 50 million pound centre back, right back? I still don't think he's a 50 million pound right now. I don't think he's a 50 million pound defender. But I was happy to take it. I would have been happy to keep him too. But I think he's got to be applauded for the way he's handled himself.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, it's so rare. And I think in this day and age, we talked about egos and Enciso, and I don't want to put him in that bracket, but you're talking about a 24-year-old that is looking like one of the dressing room leaders and being able to be quite a senior member of the squad without actually being senior in age, which is, again, fairly rare and fairly level-headed for someone that has achieved so much at such a young age. So yeah, he's going with our blessings because of that. I think part of it is, is he worth 70 million? Probably. Like, if you think about it, you can debate it financially until the cows come home if you really want to. But, do I think he's going to be playing Champions League football for the next 10 years? Also, yes. I think, there's that sort of level and that caliber of player. But the mentality as well is going to get him there and is going to keep him there. And those are the type of people that obviously we want to attract, but also, we get to nurture and sort of have these players at our team and to influence younger people like Enciso, the Caicedos. That didn't really help, but those sort of bits and pieces there where those younger kids can see, and this is how you need to act and this is how you need to be to reach that ultimate level. That's one of the main reasons why he's going with so many well wishes, is because he's handled himself impeccably.
Adam, if you're still around, how do you feel about Moises Caicedo with that all being said? Because he did not handle himself the best in the world in January. We did see the change happen almost overnight from the minute the new agents took over. He did write about his own hometown with the incorrect spelling. So we don't know if what was Moises and what was his new agents. But he obviously wanted a move, right? Like, he wanted to go to Arsenal. That much was absolutely clear. And he came back February 1st and has been a superb professional throughout. His goodbye was nowhere near as emotional. Do you think there's any chance that Moises Caicedo is lining up in that starting 11 on August the 12th?
Yes, I think there's a chance. I don't think it's a good chance, but I think there's a chance. Because it depends on your perspective on old Fabrizio,
Well, I would say there is a 0% chance of Alexis McAllister lining up for us.
There's
and he hasn't officially gone. No, I'm saying 0%. He's not.
Well, there's never a 0% chance. Who knows? Maybe he goes skiing and breaks both legs. I guess he wouldn't line up, would he? So maybe you're right. But Romano's coming out saying that there was some kind of gentleman's agreement, right, between De Zerbi and Caicedo, saying, yeah, you can leave in June. Don't worry, we promise we'll let you go. And now there's this idea that there's this pact or whatever that's come out, and 3 clubs are involved, which seemingly is what? Arsenal, Man United, and is it City? I guess, or someone else. Nowhere near as emotional goodbye, but also he's not been brought up with the club in the same way McAllister has. I know McAllister was out on loan for quite a long while, but he's definitely felt a part of the club's DNA, the club's culture. I've never felt that about Caicedo. He's not been here long enough to have that kind of passion and cliche playing for the shirt. But he came back and he's played impeccably well. He's been played out of position. He's been good to his word. weird agent advice, switched agents, who's been given probably, he was pushed by them to push for this move and say all these weird things. But he's come back and he's played his heart out. No one, bar maybe Estupinian, has worked harder in the latter part of this season for that Brighton shirt. So if it goes, so be it. No hard feelings from me, even with that weird blip in the January transfer window.
Yeah, I agree. In regards to the January thing, like I think so much of that was poor advice from an agent that is desperate for money, given that him and Hincapi are the only two big players they have on their books at all, like worth anything at all. Everything else is like lower league nonsense. And then they somehow have Caicedo and Hincapi on their books. I thought they saw dollar, pound, euro signs out of the wazoo and thought this is our chance to like be a big agency very quickly. And it didn't work out because they didn't realize that they were going head to head with Tony Bloom, which is a bit of a mistake for anyone at any level. De Zerbi, Spurs are rumored to be interested in him.
Do not even speak it into existence.
It sounds like he's already told them to go F themselves unofficially. He's very, very honestly said he will be here next season. He has no interest in going anywhere else. He said he will stay here as long as he has the fire to be here, is what he said, which is fair enough. That sounds exactly the sort of thing I would expect from him and his entire character, to be honest. But I suppose to wrap this episode, because I don't want to get too far into season review stuff or like recap stuff, De Zerbi has transformed this side into something we've never seen from any mid-table side almost really in the Premier League at all, barring your kind of Leicester or title winning season special stuff. He's just won coach of the season from The Athletic. I just saw that an hour ago. He just won their coach of the season. How special can he be with one full season? It may only be the one full season we ever get of him. But what are you hoping for this summer from Roberto De Zerbi in terms of what you're expecting to see out of him in pre-season and what you're expecting to see just for the rest of next year and Europe and beyond?
Oh, you're looking like a very hard preseason, aren't you? Because he wants everything done and dusted before they get back from holiday. Yeah, I think you saw what he did with sort of the World Cup break, if you like. There's sort of a mini preseason with three quarters of the squad, if you like. It's just going to be exciting just to firstly attract the players that we're going to be able to attract. I know we spoke about this in the last pod as well, and how pivotal this summer is going to be from a transfer perspective, but also allowing De Zerbi a full preseason with a group of guys that he wants, rather than inheriting, being able to mold this squad into what he thinks that it should be and what he wants to be able to deal with. Is something that every single Brighton fan should be extremely excited about. You're talking about a brand of football that everyone likes watching, neutral or Brighton fan, and you give them 6-7 weeks of preseason to rip raw. I think it's incredibly exciting. So we'll see with the players that we end up with, whether it's without Caicedo or not. I think just on that point, I don't think he's a 0%, but I think it's pretty low. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be fun regardless. I think we always said that as soon as De Zerbi came in. It's always fun.
I need him to be worse next year. I know that sounds weird to say, but if he can pull this off twice, he's gone. Wave goodbye. There's no way you're keeping him. Maybe just a little bit of a regression, just a teeny bit. A nice little run in the Europa League, perfect, like wonderful. But if he somehow defies the odds again and does this 2 seasons in a row, he's going to coach at elite level. And I don't want that. I really do. We thought we had it good with Potter, and we've got it really, really, really good. He is. There's no one now in the coaching world at the moment outside of Pep, I really can't think of anyone else. Your Peps and your Klopps, maybe, that another owner would want running their club. Really, I know we're biased, but I think anyone would try and snap this guy up, especially if he proves it over a consistent period of time. So hopefully the brand of football stays the same. Can't see it changing. And I think it's less of a focus on De Zerbi, more of a focus on Bloom and Barber here. Can you bring in the people and the group to support De Zerbi and not get him disgruntled? I think he was quoted as saying something along the lines of, "I'm not going anywhere as long as I've got the fire here." That's a warning shot, because the fire is a byproduct of, is he being given the tools to do his job? They need to do that, and I think someone commented in the chat about the supply line, keeping it running. If we think Mac is gone, if we think Caicedo's gone, which they both probably are, because you can't go back on a gentleman's agreement, Caicedo will just go on strike. So if that's true, it's a lot of backfilling to do. There really, really, really is. And even if we've got Dahoud, we've got Milner, we've got João Pedro, it's got to be a big, big window to keep De Zerbi happy.
I think on that note, we're good. Next week we will be back for full season recap of the best and worst moments. I suspect we've got a couple of those either way, and most of them probably involve that soon to be possibly Palace manager in Graham Potter himself. In terms of worst moments, so we will be back next week, and then it's summer. I don't know when we'll be back after that. So have a wonderful week, everybody. We will see you next week at some point. Enjoy the FA Cup final. Unpopular opinion, now we've finished 6th and had the season we had. I'm not that bothered about missing out on the final. I do worry that we maybe wouldn't have finished 6th by getting through. I feel like we would have been a bit more distracted. But yes, we'll speak to you all next week and have a wonderful week.
Thanks
all.